Very good evening to all our friends and welcome to the Hindu News Analysis of Shankar IAS Academy for the date 26 February 2021. The list of the relevant news articles taken up for today's discussion from 5 different editions of the Hindu newspaper along with their page numbers are given here for your reference. Also, the handwritten notes in the PDF format and timestampings for all the news articles taken up for today's discussion is given in the description box and also in the comment section for the best interest of the viewers. Let us now start with our first news article. See, this news article is about the introduction of the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. This rule has brought in detailed guidelines for the digital content on both digital media and over-the-top platforms. So in this context, let us discuss in detail about these OTT platforms and the significance of this rule. The syllabus relevant for this analysis is highlighted here for your reference. Please go through it. As we know, the Digital India program has now become a movement which is empowering the common Indians with the power of technology. The extensive spread of mobile phones, internets, etc. has also enabled many social media platforms to expand their footprints in India. Common people are also using these platforms in a very significant way. For example, 53 crore Indians use WhatsApp and more than 41 crore Indians use Facebook and 21 crore Indians use Instagram. So these platforms have enabled the common Indians to show their creativity, ask questions, be informed and freely share their views, including criticism of the government and its functionaries. But we should note that the proliferation of social media also gave rise to some serious concerns and consequences which have grown manifold in the recent years. Some of these include the inducement for recruitment of terrorists, circulation of obscene content, spread of disharmony, financial frauds, incitement of violence, public order, etc. Now let us understand what an OTT platform is. See, the telecom service providers offering fixed and mobile telephony are currently being overwhelmed by the online content which is known as over-the-top applications or services. So an OTT provider can be defined as a service provider offering information communication technology services, but neither operates a network nor leases network capacity from a network operator. Instead, they rely on the global internet and access the network speeds in order to reach the users, hence going over the top of a telecom service provider's network. So based on the kind of services they provide, there are basically 3 types of OTT apps. And they are the messaging or voice services or simply the communication services, then the application ecosystems which are linked to the social networks and e-commerce, and finally video or audio content. The best known examples of OTT are Skype, WhatsApp, Instagram, Google Talk, then e-commerce sites like Amazon and also movie platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime. And know that till now there was no robust complaint mechanism wherein the ordinary users of the social media and other OTT platforms can register their complaints and get it redressed within a defined timeline. Amidst the growing concerns around the lack of transparency, accountability and rights of users related to the digital media, the Center has framed the IT Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. Now finally, let us see some of the salient features of this rule. See, the rules prescribe due diligence that must be followed by intermediaries, including the social media intermediaries. It also mandated the intermediaries to establish a grievance redressal mechanism for receiving and resolving complaints from the users. The intermediaries shall appoint a grievance officer to deal with such complaints and share the names and contact details of the officer in charge. The grievance officer shall also acknowledge the complaint within 24 hours and resolve it within 15 days from its receipt. Next, the rules mandate ensuring the online safety and dignity of the users, especially women users. So the intermediaries shall remove or disable the access within 24 hours of receipt of the complaints of the contents that exposes the private areas of individuals or show such individuals in full or partial nudity, etc. Now, another important provision is that significant social media intermediaries providing messaging services shall enable the identification of the first originator of the information. And this will be required only for the purpose of prevention, detection, etc. of an offense which is related to sovereignty and integrity of India, friendly relations with the foreign states, or public order, etc. So these are some of the important provisions of the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. And we will discuss the other provisions of this rule in the coming days. So with this information, let us move on to the next news. And now this news article talks about the extradition of Nirav Modi, who is alleged to have committed offences in India. So in this discussion, let us see the background, then what is extradition and the related laws and rules in India. The relevant syllabus is highlighted here for your reference. Please go through it. So first let us understand what is extradition. See, extradition is the surrender of an alleged or convicted criminal by one state to another. More precisely, extradition is the process by which one state, upon the request of a second state, surrenders a person who is found within its jurisdiction to the second state. And the purpose for such request and also the surrender is trial and punishment of that person. So this trial or punishment is on account of a crime which is punishable by the laws of the requesting state, that is the first state. So in simple terms, extradition means the surrender of a fugitive offender by one state to another state in which the offender is liable to be punished or in which the offender has been convicted. Here fugitive means a person who has escaped from captivity or the person who is in hiding. So to understand it better, let us take the example of Nirav Modi case. See, the background of the case is that Mr. Nirav Modi was an Indian businessman, particularly diamond merchant, who is wanted for fraud and money laundering. Actually, he is the subject of two main sets of criminal proceedings in India. One is the Central Bureau of Investigation case relating to a large-scale fraud upon the Punjab National Bank in 2018, which involves fraudulent transactions of more than 11,000 crore rupees. And the second is the Enforcement Directorate case, which is relating to the laundering of the proceeds of that particular fraud. In simple terms, money laundering refers to converting of illegally earned money into legitimate money. But in the meantime, Mr. Nirav Modi escaped to the United Kingdom and thus here he is a fugitive. Now based on Indian government's request, he was arrested by the UK officials in 2019. And this request by the Indian government is a provisional arrest request which is requested in case of emergency or urgency when an extradition request is pending and when it is believed that the fugitive may flee or escape that particular jurisdiction also. So after his arrest, the Indian government sent a request to the UK authorities for the extradition of Nirav Modi. So here the Indian government is the second state or the requesting state and the UK government is the first state. Next, note that an extradition request for an accused can be initiated in the case of an under investigation criminal or offender, then in case of under trial criminals and also in case of convicted criminals. And here particularly in cases of under investigation, abundant precautions have to be exercised by the law enforcement agency of the requesting country. And this precaution should be exercised to ensure that the law enforcement agency of the requesting country is in possession of prima facie evidence so as to sustain the allegations against the offender before the courts of law in the foreign state. To understand this, let us take the Nirav Modi example again. Say he is arrested in UK and now after his arrest, the extradition trial was started by the UK court. And thus the UK court is here the court of law in the foreign state. And if you see, today's news is about the judgment of that trial in which the UK court held that Nirav Modi can be extradited to India to face charges of fraud and money laundering. And this decision has been taken by the UK court on the ground that prima facie a case has been made. That is, it was proved based on the evidence put forth by the CBI and Enforcement Directorate that there were sufficient grounds warranting Mr. Nirav Modi's trial in India. So here you can understand the importance of the possession of prima facie evidence by the requesting country, because it is not only important to obtain the criminal but also to safeguard the dignity of India in a foreign court. Now to undertake such strenuous extradition process which involves a foreign country, we need proper legislations or rules or regulations. And see, extradition plays an important role in the international battle against crime. So primarily, the law of extradition is based on two broad principles. One is that it is in the interests of all the nations that crimes recognized by civilized world should not go unpunished. The second one is so-called principle of territoriality of criminal law, according to which a state will not apply its penal statutes to the acts committed outside its own boundaries except where the protection of special national interests is at stake. So what are the legislations for this? See, in India, we have a separate legislation called the Extradition Act of 1962. It is an act to consolidate a law relating to the extradition of fugitive criminals. That is, it is the law for extradition of criminal fugitives from India to foreign states and vice versa. Additionally, the basis of extradition could be an extradition treaty between India and the concerned foreign country. The Act defines an extradition treaty as a treaty, agreement or even arrangement which is made by India with a foreign state. And it should be noted that extradition treaties are traditionally bilateral in character and most of them have at least these 5 principles. You can just go through it. Here know that under Section 3 of Extradition Act, a notification could be issued by the Government of India for extending the provisions of the Act to the country or countries notified. And these are the countries with which India has signed extradition treaties and which are in force. You can just go through it. So India has an extradition treaty with UK which will enable the process of extradition of Nirav Modi. Now what about a country with which India doesn't have an extradition treaty? See, India can make an extradition request to any country, but here India's treaty partners have obligations to consider India's requests, which is not the case with other countries. And in absence of a treaty, there is no obligation, so the foreign country will decide whether to consider it or not. Similarly, any country can make an extradition request to India, including the non-treaty states. And this is defined in Section 3, Clause 4 of the 1962 Act. It provides for the process of extradition with non-treaty foreign states. So that means India also extradites its own nationals, but in practice, India follows a dual system. That is, by extraditing nationals on the basis of reciprocity. That is, if the other treaty state does not extradite, India also bars extradition of own nationals. So based on this, these are the countries to which the extradition of Indian nationals is barred by the bilateral extradition treaty. You can go through it. Now what is the procedure of extradition in India? Here first note that the Consular, Passport and Visa Division or CPV Division of Ministry of External Affairs is the central or nodal authority in India that administers the Extradition Act. And in this regard, it also processes the incoming and outgoing extradition requests. So extradition is not available at the request of members of the public. And such extradition request for an accused or fugitive can be initiated after a charge sheet has been filed before an appropriate court, and only after the court has issued orders or directions in this regard and has sought the presence of the accused or the fugitive to face trial in the case. And these extradition requests should be supported by prescribed documents and information which should be prepared on the basis of the provisions of the extradition treaty. So in this discussion, we saw what is meant by extradition and what are the laws or rules which are related to extradition in India. Now with this information, let us move on to the next news. Now see this comment column which is with reference to the functioning of political system in India. See, this is a continuation of yesterday's discussion. Yesterday we had an elaborate discussion on how the government of Puducherry was destabilized, leading to the fall of the government. Today we shall discuss on the anti-defection law and we will see whether it is doing any good to our parliamentary democracy. The relevant syllabus is highlighted here for your reference. Please go through it. See, the Puducherry example highlights the absurdity of the anti-defection law. Now, the political parties have devised a new technique to topple the ruling governments. So, instead of asking them to defect to the other party, they are now asked to resign, which leads to the fall of the ruling government. So, the very purpose of anti-defection law to provide stable governments is now under question. First, let us see what is defection. We often see that members elected from one party shift their allegiance to other parties for benefits such as ministerial berths. And this is called defection. As a result of such defections, the elected governments will collapse, which may lead to a loss of public trust in democratic governments. So, in order to bring stability to the democratically elected governments, the anti-defection provisions were introduced in the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution with 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. For this reason, this schedule is popularly known as anti-defection law. Now, what are the grounds for disqualification under 10th schedule? First is that if an MP or MLA voluntarily gives up the membership of the political party on whose ticket he or she is elected to the house. Second, if an MP or MLA votes or abstains from voting in the house contrary to any of the directions given by his or her political party. Third, if any nominated member joins any political party after the expiry of 6 months. And fourth, if any independently elected member joins any political party. So the law states that any MP or MLA would be disqualified from their office if they vote on any motion contrary to the directions issued by their party. Note that this provision is not just limited to confidence motions or money bills, which are quasi-confidence motions. This applies to all votes in the House on every bill and every other issue. It even applies to Rajya Sabha and legislative councils, even though they have no say in the stability of the government. Therefore, an MP has absolutely no freedom to vote according to their wish. That means they have to blindly follow the directions issued by the political party. And this goes against the concept of representative democracy. Conceptually, there are two broadly accepted roles of a representative, such as an MP, in a democracy. First one is that they are agents of the voters and they are expected to vote according to the wishes and for the benefits of their constituents or public. Second, the duty to their constituents is to exercise their judgment on various issues towards the broader public interest. In this, they deliberate with other MPs and find a reasonable way or a reasonable solution for complex issues. But the anti-defection law completely negates this concept of a representative in a democracy, because it makes the MP neither a delegate of the constituency nor a national legislator, but merely converts them to be just an agent of the political party. Unfortunately, this kind of representative as a political agent is unique to India because this is in contrast with other democracies. For example, in the recent impeachment vote of former US President Donald Trump, 7 members from his Republican Party voted to convict him, though they belong to Republican Party. And this move of them will not have much legal repercussions like disqualifying them. Then comes accountability. See, in a representative democracy, it is the people who decide the fate of the legislator. So the legislator is accountable to the voters, and in turn, the government is accountable to the legislators. So this chain of accountability has now been broken by making legislators accountable merely to the political party. So anyone from the ruling party can't hold the government accountable. Further, the member of parliaments have a ready explanation for the voting behavior. That is, they had to follow the party's directions. And if not, they will be disqualified. So what will be the consequences? See, if an MP has no freedom to take decisions on policy and legislative proposals, then he or she may not show any interest to understand the different policy choices and their outcomes. Maybe for that reason, we don't see many legislators debating on policies in the parliament, which is the very purpose for which they were elected. So the core role of an MP to examine and decide on policies, bills and budgets is sidelined. Now it should be noted that the framers of our constitution did not intend this. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that the presidential form had higher stability but lower accountability as the president is elected for 4 years term and cannot be removed. But in a parliamentary form, the government is accountable daily through questions and motions and can be removed any time if it loses majority. So in this regard, the drafting committee believed that India needed a government that was accountable even at the cost of stability. But this anti-defection law weakened this particular accountability mechanism. And not just that, the anti-defection law does not even provide stability, the main reason why it is enacted. As said before, parties now found many new ways to topple governments without defecting. So the problem arises when we attempt to find a legal solution for a political problem. If stability of the government is an issue due to people defecting from the parties, the answer is to strengthen the party's internal systems. And if the members are from similar ideology, and if the parties have a system for people to rise within the party hierarchy, that means on their capabilities, then generally they won't leave the party. But in India, very few parties offer opportunities to rise within the party, and in many others, it is just inheritance or what we call as dynasty politics. So as these characteristics seem to absent in many of the political parties, many defections are happening despite the presence of the anti-defection law. So in conclusion, the author says that the anti-defection law has a detrimental effect to the functioning of our legislatures. It has turned legislators into mere agents just to endorse the decision of the government on bills and budgets. And very unfortunately, the law has not even done its job of ensuring the stability of the governments. So the author concludes by saying that the 10th schedule to the constitution, which means the anti-defection law, must be repealed. So in this discussion, we saw about the anti-defection law and its implications towards parliamentary democracy. Now with this information, let us move on to the next news. And now this article is based on an advertisement about the 2021 Haridwar Kumbh Mela. In this context, let us discuss in detail about Kumbh Mela. See, the Kumbh Mela, or the festival of sacred picture, is the largest public gathering and collective act of faith anywhere in the world. Kumbh Mela or Kumbh Mela is a mass congregation of pilgrims who gather to take a bath or dip in a sacred river. A ritual bath at a predetermined time and place is the major event of this festival, and it is called as Shahi Snan. Know that Kumbh Mela is celebrated 4 times over a course of 12 years, and the site of the observation rotates between 4 pilgrimages located on the banks of 4 sacred rivers. They are Haridwar on the Ganges in Uttarakhand, Ujjain on the Shipra river in Madhya Pradesh, Nasik on the Godavari river in Maharashtra, and Prayagraj, which is located at the confluence of Ganga, Yamuna and the mythical river Saraswati in Uttar Pradesh. Know that the Ardha Kumbh Mela or half Kumbh Mela is held at only 2 places, and they are Haridwar and Allahabad, and it is held every 6th year. Also know that a Maha Kumbh is held after every 144 years. See, each site's celebration is based on a distinct set of astrological positions of the Sun, the Moon and the Jupiter. The celebrations occur at the exact moment when these positions are fully occupied, as it is considered to be the holiest time in Hinduism. Now let us discuss in brief about the mythology which is associated with it. See, various ancient Indian scriptures like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana have mentioned about the episode of Samudra Manthan. It is about the churning of the mythological ocean, that is Ksheer Sagar. So when the gods lost their potency, they thought of churning the Ksheer Sagar to obtain Amrit, or the nectar of immortality. But the gods realized soon that the feat couldn't be accomplished without the help of their adversaries, that is the Asuras. Hence, a provisional agreement was made between the gods and the Asuras with the promise of sharing the Amrit. And after the task was accomplished, a fight ensued between the two groups over the possession of Kumbh, or the picture which contains the divine nectar, and they fought over 12 days and nights, which equates to 12 human years. And while the fight was on, the vehicle of Lord Vishnu, that is the Garuda, flew away with the Kumbh. And during this fight, some drops of Amrit spilled over at 4 places on the earth, namely Prayagraj, Haridwar, Ujjain and Nasik. So commemorating this celestial and mythical event, the Kumbh Mela is held 4 times every 12 years at these 4 places. And it is believed that during this time, the water from these rivers turn into purifying nectar, which allows the devotees to cleanse their souls as they take a bath in them. So in this discussion, we saw about the Kumbh Mela and the mythology associated with it. So with this information, let us move on to the next news. Now this news article mentions that the Indian National Centre for Ocean Information Services, or INCOIS in short, is going to undertake the aerial mapping of ocean floor using the bathymetric study or survey. So what is a bathymetric survey? See, bathymetry is the study of the beds or floors of water bodies, including the ocean, rivers, streams and lakes. See, originally the term bathymetry referred to the ocean's depth relative to the sea level. But now it means the submarine topography or the depths or shapes of underwater terrain. So this bathymetry is a part of hydrography which measures the physical features of a water body. Further, the bathymetric surveys allow us to measure the depth of a water body as well as map the underwater features of a water body. Such bathymetric maps illustrate the land that lies underwater. So in this map, variations in the seafloor relief may be depicted by color and contour lines which are called as depth contours or isobaths. You can see it in this image. So bathymetry constitutes the main source of information on the morphology of the seafloor. And multiple methods can be used for bathymetric surveys. See, bathymetric surveys are done for many different types of research including flood inundation, contour or outline of streams and reservoirs, water quality studies, dam removal, then storage and fill in reservoirs and ponds, etc. And today's news is that INCOIS is going to carry out bathymetric study or survey along with the National Remote Sensing Center. The study is for aerial mapping of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and also Lakshadweep to get a better picture of the ocean floor. So in this regard, let us know about the National Centre for Ocean Information Services or INCOIS. See, it is an autonomous body under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. And it is a unit of the Earth System Science Organization or ESSO. So it is also known as ESSO INCOIS. And now that ESSO INCOIS is mandated to provide the best possible ocean information and advisory services through sustained ocean observations and through systematic and focused research. And these are its objectives. Please go through it. And the activities by it can be summarized as providing potential fishing zone advisories, then experimental ocean state forecast, marine meteorological advisory services, and also web-based ocean information services. And it also contributes to storm surge prediction and disaster management, then climate, monsoon or weather forecast, then monitoring of pollution or oil spill, and also to the global ocean observing system. So in this discussion, we saw about bathymetry, then bathymetric survey, and about the Indian National Centre for Ocean Information Services. So with this, we have analyzed almost all the relevant news articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. Now let us move on to the practice questions discussion section based on today's news analysis. Now see this first question. Consider the following statements with reference to Indian National Centre for Ocean Information Services. The first statement reads, it works under the administrative control of Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. See, this statement is incorrect. We know that it works under the administrative control of Ministry of Earth Sciences of Government of India. Now the second statement reads, it provides round-the-clock monitoring and warning services for the coastal population on tsunamis, storm surges, high waves, etc. Yes, this statement is correct. Know that it provides round-the-clock monitoring and warning services for the coastal population on tsunamis, storm surges, high waves, etc. through the in-house Indian Tsunami Early Warning Center. The Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO has designated the ITEWC as a regional tsunami service provider to provide tsunami warnings to the countries on the Indian Ocean Rim. So this second statement is correct, and we have to identify the correct statement or statements. Since first statement is incorrect, the correct answer for this question is option B, 2 only. Now see the second question. Consider the following rivers: Shipra, Godavari, Ganges and Krishna. Which of the rivers given above is or are associated with Kumbh Mela? See, the correct answer for this question is option B, 1, 2 and 3 only, because Krishna river is not associated with Kumbh Mela. Now see this third question. Consider the following: no treaty crime, military and political offences, want of dual criminality. In which of the above cases an alleged offender may not be extradited to the requesting state? See, the correct answer is option D. Here first note that the question asks as may not be extradited. Here no treaty means absence of an extradition treaty where the states are not obligated to extradite aliens or nationals. And no treaty crime refers to crimes mentioned in the treaty. See, extradition is generally limited to crimes which are identified in the treaty, which may vary in relation from one state to another as provided by the treaty. Now, what about military and political offences? See, extradition may be denied for purely military and political offences, but know that terrorist offences and violent crimes are excluded from the definition of political offences for the purposes of extradition treaties. Now, talking about want of dual criminality, this means dual criminality exists when the conduct constituting the offence amounts to a criminal offence in both India and the foreign country. Here also, the offender may not be extradited and rather they may be tried under the law of that country. And in addition to all these, even under procedural considerations, fugitives may not be extradited. That is, extradition may be denied when due process as required by the Extradition Act of 1962 or the extradition treaty is not followed. So for this question, the correct answer is option D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now we have two mains practice questions. Please write your answers and post it in the comment section. Now we have come to the end of analysis of all the news articles taken up for today's discussion and also the discussion of practice questions. If you like this video, please press the like button, comment, share and do subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel for more videos and updates related to civil service preparation. Thank you.